Good morning. I'm Eboni Brandon. Thank you so much for joining us here on ZIZ this morning. I am so pleased to be in studio for another day, sharing some information with you and sharing what's happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm privileged to once again sit in studio with the Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Natta, who is here to share a bit about his office, what it does, and some of the projects that are under their purview right now, some of the projects that have been executed. Dr. Natta, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for having me, Ebony.
Last time we spoke was independence.
Yeah. So long ago?
Yeah, independence.
Wow. Yeah.
When you came to discuss the independence plans.
Right.
So here we are again, but this time you're here to speak about your office, the Cabinet Secretariat,
Yes.
and the work it is that you do. So broadly speaking, because we hear about the Cabinet Secretary, we hear about the Cabinet Secretariat, what is your office and what does your office do?
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I get that question a lot, actually. And when I first came in back in August 2022, there were essentially just two people, the cabinet secretary and an admin person. We've since grown, in a sense. I now have two additional staff. And I think that's critically important because the purview of the cabinet secretariat is far, wide, deep, and everything else. It's quite a bit, and we have a vision to do a lot more. And essentially, the cabinet secretariat has purview over the federal cabinet and its operations, specifically to make sure that the decisions that are made in cabinet are executed by the various ministries and departments. And so that's probably a very key part of it. But outside of that, and since I've joined and taken up the post, I've wanted to expand that a bit. And so we have a policy and research analyst right now that is really critical for us to look at policies across government and how we, one, collate that in a place that everybody can find these policies and find out where there are gaps, where there are policies that are unwritten. We in governments all over the world, there are a lot of unwritten policies and so on. Bringing those to the fore and having them written and available for persons. So that's a very key part of what we're trying to do and the vision for taking the office another step forward.
So it is not just that you're in cabinet on Mondays taking notes and you're not just the guy who comes and tells us what the cabinet decisions are.
No. It's a lot beyond that.
And then you have a background very heavy in research. So I'm happy to hear that you've expanded to the policy and research. So we're not just implementing policies. We're not just randomly saying, well, this is what is going to happen. All of this is being documented. It's being structured.
Correct.
And there is proper research going into whether or not these are practical things taking place.
And we want to be a repository. So again, going to my research background and even as a former professor and so on, where students and teachers as well can find certain things. So if there's a national youth policy, a national sports policy, they don't have to go searching all over. We want to have that in one place, and we've started gathering those national policies so that educators and like I said, students alike doing SBAs, etc., they can go to one place and find that policy. And if, again, they might be able to even identify where something is missing, and we can look into that.
So I'm assuming all of this is a part of the good governance agenda that we keep hearing about,
the
push for greater accountability and transparency in the operations of government.
Definitely.
So now tell me about some of the projects that you have under your purview. I know of a few, the public may not, so I'm going to ask you to share them with us at this time, some of what you have going on.
So where do I begin? At the beginning?
So why not at the beginning? But I think the one that everybody is immediately drawn to is perhaps Aspire, because that one involves children, and people like the idea of building financial security for their children, the financial education element of the program as well. Tell me about that first and how that one has been going.
Yeah, I think it's been going extremely well. It's extremely well. This program is revolutionary, and it may not seem so right away for persons. And I think we try to, as an Aspire task force, we continue to try to raise awareness about Aspire. We were just at the interprimary meet a couple of weeks ago at the Kim Collins Stadium for 2 days, having a booth there, signing up people, answering their questions, and so on. But this is a program that started with the Prime Minister making a pronouncement in December 2023 in Parliament that we're going to start this financial literacy program for young persons and help them to have a financial foundation on which to build. And talking about generational wealth, there was no name or anything to the program. And then from there, the task force, we did a name competition, and we got the name Aspire as the winning name. And so we've taken off from there. It was officially launched during Independence in 2024. In terms of where we are today, I must say we are doing quite well. From our estimates, we have about 8,000 to 9,000 maybe eligible students. Of course, every day somebody has a birthday, right? And it's for Aspires for students between age 5 and 18. So every day somebody might turn 5, somebody might turn 19, as the case may be. But on average, we're looking at 8,000 to 9,000. And from my latest look at the numbers this morning, we had 5,527 applications. Of that, just over 4,300 already have been approved. Some, of course, would not be approved, some because it's open to citizens only. So we had some persons who applied and they're not citizens. And we have quite a high number, which we're trying to bring down, of persons who started the application but are not done. And we have about 900 of those. So if you look at all those numbers, not to get too much into the math, I think we are much more than halfway there in terms of the number of students we want on the Aspire program. And the savings accounts have been open. What we are working on now is the investment portion of it. The financial education pilots are already ongoing in our high schools and our primary schools. And so we hope we can roll that out in the new school year. Once we look at the sort of kinks we might have to work out from these pilots, we hope we could roll that out fully across all the schools. But the teachers have been receptive, the students have been enjoying it. So hopefully we can do that, because that is the most important part of the program. Forget the $500 in savings, forget the $500 in investment shares. That's good. But the financial education part of it is the key to it. And the good thing about that phase of part of the program is that everybody gets that, because, like I said, there are persons who are not citizens who are not eligible for the program. But if you're sitting in the class, they're not going to tell you, oh, you're not a citizen, you leave.
So you've got to leave, yeah.
No, so everybody gets the financial education component, which is the key part of the program.
That sounds good. And so moving into the future for the Aspire program, because you're still working out, I'm believing some of the kinks and seeing areas that you can improve. There's always room for improvement. Yes. Where is it that you see Aspire going over time?
I view Aspire as revolutionary as the Social Security program. I wasn't there when Social Security went I wasn't born yet, from National Provident Fund to Social Security, but from my knowledge and what I know about it, there were persons who were totally against Social Security. Where you're going to let them take your money, and what they're going to do with your money, and so on. Very negative towards Social Security. And if you look at Social Security today, I'm sure everybody would say that it is truly beneficial, especially when persons who don't have it then end up needing it. You get injured or something and you want something to support you and you don't have it. So much so that even today, as big as Social Security is, even today, they still push for people to make sure that they sign up for Social Security, especially those sole entrepreneurs, ask them to sign up. Our government now is actually tying a lot of our social assistance programming to Social Security, making sure that you are paying into Social Security in order to benefit from social assistance programs from the government. So it's critically important, and I see Aspire like that. And I just like persons didn't see it maybe back in the 70s, 80s, the importance of Social Security, maybe persons don't grasp Aspire that way as well, or they grasp it that way as well right now. But in a few years, I think it will be in line with Social Security in terms of the importance and the need for persons to ensure that their children are part of the Aspire program.
So the other question that I think from a parent's point of view, or even an older child who got into the program now, who may very soon have their own children, if I enroll my child at 5,
Yes.
over the lifetime of the program where the child is enrolled, what is the return for that child, as you were, apart from the financial education that they would have received in terms of how to manage money, in terms of investment, budgeting, all these sorts of things? Between the shares that they receive and the initial 500, if you consistently save over that period of time, what are you likely to have at the end of it, and what can you do with it then?
Yeah. So you're turning this into a math class.
Well, not just broadly speaking.
No, I see you're turning it into a math class. I mean, it really all depends. It really all depends.
Because I might only be able to save $5 a week. Somebody can put in more.
Right. The savings rate is 2.5%. Right, with National Bank. That's first and foremost. So persons can maybe do their math there. You're talking about, if you start from 5, that's about 13 years on the program. So you can work the math there. The key part in terms of calculating that as well is the investment. Like I said, we haven't gotten that rolling quite yet, and we're close to getting that done. Is what kind of returns, dividends, and so on would be built out of that, with the shares from National Bank, shares from the cable, which I can't really ascertain at this moment. But I can see somebody be putting in $1,000 and you're coming out with 5,000 plus, right? Like I said, if you're depositing every time a child gets a birthday or Christmas monetary gift, they say, let me put it on my Aspire account. I could see that going pretty high. In terms of what happens at the end, let's say somebody ends up with $20,000, the point that we want them to be at is that they're so educated in terms of financially, economics, and so on, that they don't just go and withdraw the money or call on the value of their shares and so on and collect that and just fly off into the night and go and spend it unwisely. We feel like at that point they're so educated that they would in turn use those funds, in a prudent manner.
Maybe collateral for purchasing.
Might be starting a business of their own. Collateral, like you said, for purchasing land or some
investing,
house,
purchasing
property,
more shares, bonds,
get more investment. So that's what we really foresee. Going off to study. Maybe they use that to help them to go off to study and so on. But whatever it is, we just feel like once they get to that point, that they would really have the tools, the financial tools and know-how to make a wise decision with the funds that they have.
And especially with the education system that we have now, we are encouraging and make it possible for children to aspire to become anything.
No pun intended, eh?
Yes, no pun intended at all. I didn't even realize that. But you got your PhD by what age? You were still in your 30s?
I was 28.
You see?
Yes.
So you were very young, and that gives you an entire lifetime of opportunity. Now imagine getting to 28, you have a PhD, the world is your oyster now, but you don't know what to do with all this money that you have the potential to make.
Correct.
So you're making money and doing what with it?
Correct.
You didn't learn anything along the way.
No.
So that is why I think, programs like Aspire, in addition to the educational opportunities and other things, are so important.
Critically important.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Now you have other things that are going on with you as well. One of the things that people may not know as much about, but was still very important, was the National Indoor Air Quality campaign. And there was a conference, I remember, that was at the Marriott. There was all of that going on. Tell me a little bit about that and what has happened since the initial public splash.
Yeah, so in 2024, we had a National Indoor Air Quality Conference and forum at the Marriott, where we really wanted to kind of hone in on this issue of indoor air quality and get away from maybe the thought of persons just speaking about mold. Mold was a very popular buzzword here for several years, right? Going all the way back to the Bastia High School saga. And we wanted to really offer a platform for persons to really understand what we talk about when we talk about mold and other aspects of indoor air quality. And from that conference, which was really well attended, we got a lot of information out from that report. One of the things we decided to do was form a national task force to have and establish a policy, a national indoor air quality policy. And so we embarked on that, and that is being headed by the current president of the, I think his name is Institute of Architects, and he's been doing an excellent job. We're to the point now where we do have a draft policy, which we will be kind of fine-tuning a little bit. And one of the key things for me, at least, coming from that space as well, when I was at the Bureau of Standards, I learned quite a lot from people like Mr. Jermaine Mike and, that about indoor air quality and air quality in general. And so I've taken that on board in terms of what we're doing with the Indoor Air Quality Task Force. So hopefully maybe I shouldn't give a date, but hopefully this year we can have that policy formalized, approved by cabinet, and something that is out there, because climate change continues to affect. That's one of the main factors is climate change and the effects of climate change. We've changed how we build a lot. Everybody has ACs in their homes and offices now, and don't necessarily maybe clean them as often as they should, and that sort of thing. And we also have to, we try to educate the public as well on the fact that your indoor air quality is impacted by the quality of your outdoor air as well, right? So depending on what you may have around your surroundings, whether in your yards or your offices, that also affects your indoor air quality. And, we've had instances where offices had to be closed down, cleaned and moved, and maybe staff were, claiming they were affected, and so forth. So we're trying to educate everybody, from doctors, because sometimes medical doctors are giving incorrect information to persons about mold levels in their body and in their blood. And so this is very critical. It is something that pops up every now and again when you hear an office is closed. Sometimes people kind of keep it on the low, but we really hope to formulate a policy that is clear, not overly technical, although there have to be some technical aspects, but something that every citizen can easily read, absorb, and understand, and apply, whether in their home or in their workspaces.
As part of the work that you're doing with this particular project, is there a place, an office somewhere, an email persons can contact if they have questions until this policy is available where we can see?
Yeah, I don't have a necessarily a space or anything like that, and I'm not the chair of the task force, but they can filter it to the cabinet secretariat, and we will get it to the task force for sure. Persons were at the forum, and like I said, they spoke out a lot on it, and so we were able to capture a lot of that information. And a lot of the information a lot of the maybe complaints and issues are very much the same, because indoor air quality and again, this idea of mold, persons talking about mold in particular, a lot of it has to do with leaks. A lot of it, like I said, has to do with maybe lack of maintenance on what you call HVAC systems, our AC systems, and so on. So those things are pretty typical, but we want to kind of go beyond that, and that's what we're trying to do, go beyond that. But if persons have questions or and so on, they can filter it to me, and I can get it to the right person.
Fantastic. And before you leave, we can perhaps share some information with how persons can interact with your office if needs be on any of these projects. Another thing that I know that has been generating a lot of conversation is that of the National Cost of Living Task Force. This one is one that impacts everyone at every level, and it is even more of a conversation now because of the conflict in the Middle East. As far away as they are from us, it has an impact on us here in the region.
Yes.
And so what is the work of the National Cost of Living Task Force? Yeah,
well, it's important to know that the Prime Minister, I should say, set up this task force maybe 3 years ago. And so we meet, we try to meet regularly. I am the chair of that particular task force. We met in January this year for our first meeting, and February this year for our first meeting. But we meet all the time. We don't just meet when something happens in the global sphere. What we are mandated to do is really look at the aspects of our economy that are affected by either exogenous shocks, global shocks, regional or otherwise, and even things that happen on the local scene. How can we, one, educate persons, and how can we also advise the government in terms of any measures to mitigate against any shocks, right? And as you rightly said, almost every day something happens that affects us. And what we try to do, and what we started to do, is kind of make the public aware of what they can do, right? A lot of times, of course, persons look to government when there are a lot of major things. They say, well, what is the government going to do to help us to lower the gas prices? You know, the other day on another radio station, I heard the announcer trying to tell persons who are maybe messaging, saying that the government is who carried up the gas prices at the fuel pump, and he was trying to tell them, no, but the government doesn't have,
we don't have any refineries. We don't have oil
yeah,
fields.
we don't do that, right? And they just didn't believe. So I don't know if they'll believe me now, but the government doesn't have does not do that. The government doesn't adjust the prices. Companies may, of course, speak to the government, SAL, etc., and say, well, this is what is happening globally, so we might be adjusting the price, and then the government will then, in its own wisdom, decide, okay, well, this price is going up to $30 a gallon. No, we can't do that. We can't do that to our people, so let's see how we can mitigate against that and reduce that cost. So those are the things that the task force tries to look at. There's a broad spectrum of persons from within government and without that look at these things. Right now, of course, we continue our campaign. We started a Smart SKN campaign, Smart Spend SKN, where we put out some infographics just showing persons the difference in prices, not really trying to tell persons what to buy,
Right.
what brands to look at and so on, but showing that the price can be very a high
There
difference
can be
in price.
wide difference
Wide
between buying
difference.
the name brand, the brand
Correct.
name item, and buying something that might be
Correct.
generic but of equal quality.
Equal quality, especially things that we actually manufacture here in the region, which have a shorter distance to travel, so they're less costly and they last longer in your cupboards or in your refrigerators. So you should really, we try to educate people that, you should look at those brands and so on. So we put out some infographics on that. We got a little buzz here and there, which is good. Some negative, some positive, but it was good that people were looking at that. And I think people are a lot smarter, read labels, look at the prices, look at the ingredients that are in certain things, and you can compare. And I think a lot of people are doing that because you really have to first start with yourself. I agree the government will always have a part to play, but you really have to start with yourself and say, okay, $50, can I really afford to buy this, and this? Or should I buy the thing that I really, really need? And so on. So we've tried to do some of that. But from the government and the task force advising the government, we try to advise on things that we foresee might be coming. We try to have our decisions and suggestions supported by data. We had some really good reports that we got from, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture, Marine Resources, and we have statistics on our committee task force as well, and they provide us with some good data. So much so that we began a national business survey, which we sent out to. There's over like 5,000 businesses here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We sent those out and tried to get feedback on what exactly are these businesses facing, small, micro, all the way up to large businesses. What are you facing in terms of costs to your business? And a lot of them talked about, for example, their raw materials that they may need import that we don't have, those kind of things, looking at maybe how we can offer some more concessions for imported items and so on. So all of those things we constantly monitor. We work with consumer affairs as well to help us to monitor prices in the supermarkets, etc. Again, we don't set the prices. Again, those things are set by freight charges and shipping and so on. So the task force and National Cost of Living Task Force continues to monitor situation. We continue to give suggestions to the government on what may be done, and just know that we are being vigilant. Things are very dynamic right now in the global space, so we try to be nimble as well and flexible.
When we talk about the recommendations that you make to the government, one of the conversations I heard recently is, well, I hope that they had conversations when they had all the CARICOM ministers in the room. Because when we talk about using items from within the Caribbean, how are we working together to make sure that as a region, we are making sure that the cost of exporting and importing is as low as possible for consumers, that we are looking to the needs of the people in the region and manufacturing items that cater to those needs. Are these the sorts of conversations that you have?
Yeah, definitely. We do that as well. And, we have a single market economy, right? CSME, we have that space. And that's why we can get things like cement is essentially like duty free, right? And other materials that are manufactured here in the region. Trinidad, for example, manufactures lots of things with brands that are known, right? U.S. brands, European brands, and so on, but they're manufactured in the region, and those are easily moved between the islands, so their cost is significantly lower. But what is always a difficult thing is that everybody has choice, and we cannot legislate choice. We cannot enforce choice on persons. So supermarkets, we have supermarkets on our task force, for example, our representation from supermarkets on our task force, and they will tell us that they bring in other brands from the region, brands from Europe. Look at us now, we are making building bridges with our African brothers and sisters, and they have wonderful products as well that maybe supermarkets might want to bring over, but then it all comes down to choice. And if persons are more comfortable with a particular brand, whether it tastes the same, look the same, and so on, and they just want that brand, then that's what the supermarkets would have to bring in. So they've told us they've tried different brands, same quality, everything, lower price, and then they just sit on the shelf. So they're in the business of making money. So what would they do? They were going to remove those and go back to the brands that people would want. So that's the bit of difficulty with whether it's regional brands or products and so on versus those from North America or Europe, that everybody has a choice. All we can do is try to educate persons and just ask them to give other options a chance, try it out, see if you like it, and so on. Cost you a little less, and it's the same quality. Try it out.
I don't know. I remember when I was small, they used to have a lot of promotions and so on, the supermarkets where they would either do samples or you buy one, get one free on something to encourage people.
They still do that.
No, well, put something out in your lobby and people coming in and tell them, taste something and try it. That might... Because I think what I'm really hearing here is that we need to start shifting attitudes. We can't choose for people, but we need to do something that encourages and shifting attitudes and opening up people's minds to things beyond telling them, well, try it with my own money. Maybe if I can taste it or something, we do food defense where we use some of these products. That's just an idea. I don't know. Maybe we can do it. Maybe it might work.
For sure.
Because I know I'm a woman, and when you're a woman and you are responsible for the grocery budget, you are going to shop around for good prices, and you're going to try things because you want to make sure you're getting the mileage for your money. Exactly.
There's no VAT on food. So the price you get is really, again, dependent on external forces. So if shipping costs go up, clearly the supermarkets will carry up their prices. Consumer Affairs continues to monitor. You don't want people to be price gouging and so on, and they do a good job at that. But again, if you can make a more informed decision, then you do so. But I agree. So maybe the supermarkets that are listening can do some more of that. Have persons in the aisle giving you some free tastings.
Yes.
You see that in overseas.
But you don't see it
supermarkets and
really
so.
very
You don't
much
see it
here.
too much here.
And I think sometimes it's just that I don't know what this is going to be like, so let me stick with what is familiar
Right.
to me. But I'm telling you, I have started, because I need my dollar to go a little bit further too. So I've started trying other things. I'm like, hey, it's not as bad. And it came from Trinidad, or it came from Guyana or Barbados, wherever.
Right.
It's just as good, and it cost me a fraction of the price
Right.
of the brand name item that I was once used to picking up. These things are so expensive coming from North America and elsewhere,
Yes.
just because of the transportation cost to get
Of
them
course.
here. And so we need to factor
And like
in
I
these
said,
things.
they're healthier. I remember being at the bureau, and I can tell you, especially when it comes to meats, chicken and meats and so on, if you buy them locally, first of all, and then if you look at the region, they're way healthier than those that come from North America. Just because, one, our environment and so we raise our animals and so forth, but also they take a shorter time to get from the farm, for example, to
the grocery
the
store.
grocery
to you.
store, right? There are less things to try to preserve them that they would have to use and so on.
Less
So-
hormones, less antibiotics.
Exactly. So it's healthier for you, better for you. So I think people should just, give it a try. Like you said, but the supermarkets can.
And there's
can
so
help
many
with that.
local farms where, as far as, meat products and vegetables are concerned, it's really nice to just be, like just yesterday, I got a phone call. I'm downstairs, and a neighbor of mine who has a farm brought me a tray of fresh eggs. And I love that I can get fresh local eggs,
Right,
and at a reasonable cost. So guys, try it. It's nothing hurtful in trying something new. You might enjoy it.
Correct.
Other things that you have going on, though, and this is near approaching us again, Independence 43 is
Yes.
around the corner. I recently saw a call for persons to begin submissions of potential themes for
Yes,
Independence
yes.
this year. How are your plans for Independence coming along?
Yeah, we held our first meeting a couple of weeks ago, and so plans are fully underway. And the first thing is always to get the theme, like you mentioned. So we want that theme to really drive the activities and the sort of essence of the whole period of celebration. So this is our 43rd anniversary of independence coming up. And the theme competition will run until April 30th at midnight. So persons can submit the theme. We have it out online, on posters have been shared. So persons can submit themes. We already have quite a few. I looked at the link. I think we're close to 100 already. And so persons are invited to submit those theme suggestions before we make a decision. But outside of that, some of the traditional things will go on. The ceremonial, independence ceremonial parade. Again, this year we'll be having that in the evening. I'm not sure if we will go back to the morning anytime soon. Prime Minister has really highlighted the fact that, again, going back to climate change, it is extremely warm these days, even in the early mornings, especially around September, which, knock on wood, is the height of the hurricane season. So you tend to have some really warm days, and he, for sure, as a medical doctor, he does not like to see persons fainting on the parade square and that kind of thing.
That's stressful to see.
And so we've moved it to the evening, and even though the evenings can be warm, it generally is a lot cooler than early in the morning or even in the middle of the day. So that parade will be in the evening, and we've gotten some really good feedback, and have had some extremely high numbers of persons attending. So that's always good to see persons coming out and celebrating independence. So some of those staples will be there. Our National Colors Days, which we do on each Friday, we'll continue those.
And participation is always high. for that.
Always high. And coincidentally, this year, the celebrations are going to be very condensed because schools open September 7th, I believe. And so you kind of lose almost a week of September. So things are very condensed. National Heroes Day is very close to Independence Day. Independence Day is actually on a Saturday this year. And just to say, I've already heard the little rumblings. Just for persons to note, Friday will not be a national holiday before Independence, and Monday, which would be the 21st, would not be a holiday. Saturday is considered a day, a working day in that sense. And so Saturday is a holiday. I know people don't like holidays on a Saturday.
Because everybody
Because
doesn't
you
get
feel
the
like you
holiday.
lose a day.
Right.
Yeah, you lose a day. But that's how it is.
So it only
in this
happens
case.
if it happens on a Sunday.
Yeah, if
So
the
then
holiday
we
is
roll
on a
over to the
Sunday,
Monday.
then Monday is a holiday.
Just for the sake of clarity, so that you know in
But
future.
persons even ask me if Friday would be a holiday.
So you push it back.
So we don't necessarily do something
Right.
like that. Maybe an employer might give people a little half day or let them leave a little early or something. But yeah, that's not what we normally do. So Saturday is the holiday, so apologize in advance for persons who want that extra day.
But not your fault. You
It's
don't
not-
control the
no, it's
calendar.
Not my fault. Not my fault. But we're looking at putting together another wonderful set of activities, and we'll be putting out a call for fringe events, because private events also make up a large part of our independence celebrations, and we welcome that. And so persons can look forward to seeing the calendar coming out in a couple months. We usually leave that. What I would say and want to maybe announce as well is that June 1st will be the opening for our nominations for Independence National Honors. And so June 1st to July 31st will be the window. Each year, we typically do that each year. So just for the public to know, June 1st, July 31st, you can send in your nominations. We haven't put out the forms as yet, but those forms will be available towards the end of May. And you have that 2-month window to make your nominations for national honors.
And I'm going to ask, although you did say that the calendar will be coming out shortly, anything special that we need to know about this year happening for Independence?
We're thinking of some special things, but I can't make any announcements yet because we haven't finalized anything. I'll be sure to come back, God's prayer, and let you know once we finalize. But every year we try to do...
There's always something interesting that
we try to do a
pops
little
in.
something interesting and enjoyable for our people. And so we're thinking, we have some ideas already bantering about. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, we spoke a little bit earlier. You made reference to it in passing, but I want to get back into it a little in more detail, that relationship that we're now fostering with, but specifically West Africa. We've gone over to the east as well and done some things in Ethiopia and elsewhere, but we really have been putting a lot of emphasis on West Africa and building a relationship.
Right.
And it makes sense, practical sense. Proximity is a
Yes.
straight shot across from us
Yes.
in the Caribbean. Active is coming up. That creates another opportunity for engagement with persons from particularly West Africa, but all of Africa, I'm quite sure, is open and welcome to participate. Tell me a little bit about Active, what that is and how it builds on the engagements that we've been having in West Africa.
Sure. So Active is the Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. So St. Kitts and Nevis will be hosting this year. This will be the 5th edition of Active, which is an initiative of Afro-Caribbean. And Afro-Caribbean is a huge player on the African continent in terms of finance and banking, headquartered in Cairo. The Prime Minister's very first official visit when he became Prime Minister, official trip, was to Barbados for the very first Active. And I accompanied him on that trip. So I share that to say that we've been looking at building these bridges with Africa way back since 2022. And just the other day, actually, former Prime Minister Dr. Douglas even spoke about the fact that way back in 2014, 2013, that set up, are working on setting up a commission in Nigeria as well. So it's not for the public to understand that it is not today that we've been looking at building these bridges. This has been a long time coming, way back, like I said, from Dr. Douglas in maybe 2023, 2014, and then with Dr. Drew in 2022 with the very first Active. Because we recognize that we're close, right? We're not just close in geographically, we are close in culture, context. I'm telling you, anybody who has an opportunity to go to any African country, just go and visit, and you will see people who look just like your auntie, your cousin, some relative of yours. You step on the soil and you feel something like this is home, this is something familiar, and it's no joke.
That was very obvious to me from the last trip when we took all those school children over there.
Yes.
And during the tree planting exercise, you're looking at these children and you didn't know who was from St. Kitts and who was from Nigeria.
Exactly.
Seriously,
Exactly.
I didn't know.
So we have a lot of connections. When we took our very first trip over to Nigeria, when the Prime Minister went for a state visit there, we took a direct flight from St. Kitts and we hit the coast of Africa in 6 hours. 6. All right? And it takes us, 8 hours to go to London, for example. And that's the route you always have to take to go to Africa for the most part. So you go 8 hours and then you have to wait and then you have to fly maybe, depending on what country you're going to, another 8 hours and so on. And so the Prime Minister's always talked about, why do we have to do these sort of things? If they could have done this, which is a bad thing, in the Middle Passage by boats, and come straight across to the region, why can't we go straight to Africa? And so Active offers this particular forum for trade and investment and building that sort of relationship with the continent, like you said, particularly with West Africa, just because it's very close to get there, and that's where most of our enslaved ancestors came from. It was West African countries, Ghana, Senegal, and so on. And so we continue to see how we can build those bridges. One of the things that I think the public needs to understand, and I think they get wrong a bit, is this idea of, well, what does St. Kitts have and Nevis have to offer? We have 55,000 people on a good day or whatever. You know, how much products can we, for example, make to go and support Africa, which has billions of people or something like that? And so that's a notion that is a bit myopic, and we have to kind of look a little bit beyond that, right? You have to look a little bit beyond that. One of the things that is very valuable is knowledge sharing. You can't touch knowledge sharing. The continent of Africa is taking off in terms of innovation, AI, the digital economy, as well as manufacturing and so on. So I don't want people to just look at it like, well, how can a farmer send sweet potatoes over to Africa, you know, when they have farms that could be big like the island of St. Kitts and so on. It's not necessarily just about those things, but knowledge sharing, services as well. I know we had an agro-processor who was able to send over like 3,000 bottles of his tea, Mother Becky's tea, and so on.
And it seemed everybody was enjoying it.
Of course, nothing beats that. So if you can get one city to be a market for your goods or your services and so on, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. And you can't beat the fact that you make these networks that you can then build on it, especially our creatives. You know, music is something that you can export much easier than some bottles of iced tea and so on. So we have to look at it as opening up St. Kitts and Nevis to the world and showcasing especially our services, our talents and skills, and not necessarily trying to think like we are going to try to feed, you know, a nation in Africa. We just can't do that. We don't have the scale for that.
As you said, it is a little bit myopic as well, because using the example of the tea, for example, if I am manufacturing 500,000 bottles a year, I'm probably not going to sell my 500,000 in St. Kitts, but if I send half of that to Nigeria, that might sell out in a month or two,
right.
just
Correct.
because of the vast size of the market there. So you don't even have to be the most popular brand in a market like that to be very successful.
Correct.
by virtue of the fact numbers. You
Correct.
have more people.
Correct. Yeah.
So again, I agree with you. We need to think a little bit larger than the way we've been in the habit of thinking. And again, if we're doing this as a region, because other countries in the region are now jumping on board with the idea that this is a good thing for us, establishing these relationships with West Africa, the proximity of West Africa to us and us to them in terms of moving goods, services, people around. It makes sense, doesn't it? You know? So.
And there are a lot of persons who actually want to come on vacation. They would love to come to the region. And so there's a tourism aspect to it as well. And I'm sure there are a lot of people here who would love to go. I don't think it's just our Rastafarian brothers and sisters who have some connection to Africa and love to go. You know, I always wanted to go, and I was happy I got the opportunity to go, and I would love to do that, on my own and take my family over and just go and visit.
And the thing is, countries like Ghana have a policy almost where if you are from the African diaspora, and they're very kind to us, particularly in the Caribbean region and the United States, Canada, that sort of thing, come home.
Yes. There is a come home initiative in Ghana for sure. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so these are things we also need to explore. We have second homes in the United States and Canada. Why we can't have a second home in Ghana and go home to Ghana?
Exactly.
You know? It's something we need to expand our mind about.
Like I said, the continent is extremely big in innovation and development. There's a lot going on, and you really have to go to maybe demystify a lot of the myths and falsehoods that people speak about.
Country,
it is a lot of myths that easily dispelled once you go and visit.
See for yourself. Kind of like the groceries that y'all not trying. Go and check it out for yourself. But you have other things going on in your office as well. And there is so much more happening in St. Kitts and Nevis that you have a hand in. So in these final moments, because we're almost out of time, we've spoken almost an hour, I want you to, just give us some of your final thoughts, perhaps touch on things we weren't able to touch on during the course of our interview, which I thought was very informative.
Yeah, well, so from the cabinet secretariat level, I really wanted to, like I say, expand what the office can do. I see a lot of potential in the office. I know we're small government in that sense, where I'm not going to have tons of staff. But I really want us to do a lot more. We have a strategic plan that we are following, and we are building out a lot more of the work that we want to do around policy and research in particular. But outside of that, we really want it to not seem like this is just an office that nobody knows anything about, hence my reason for being here. I want people to understand, and young people in particular, what exactly the cabinet secretary does, what the office does and can do, and that they can, even aspire to be a cabinet secretary. I don't know if that's, sometimes people want to be a minister or a prime minister, but maybe you want to be the cabinet secretary, because I really think we are the engine that kind of drives a lot of the work that the government does, because if we do not convey what a particular decision is from the cabinet to the relevant authorities, nothing will happen. So I think that's a big deal. If I do say so myself, I think it's a big deal. And the Prime Minister gives us a lot to do. And so we're grateful for that as well. And we keep on our toes with that. I wanted to maybe mention again on Aspire that legislation was passed. The Aspire Act was passed, and so we are governed, trying to live up to that act and action that a lot. One of the things is that there's to be established an authority, a sort of statutory body to manage the Aspire program. It's still being run by our committee, our task force, and I would really want to check that box and have that authority established. So that's something we're looking at, building out that authority that would then look at where do you invest these funds? Do you invest in Apple and
Right.
Microsoft? Where do you invest to help to grow the investment portfolio and build that wealth for those Aspire participants? So that's something we are actively looking at, and I hope that will be done this year as well. I encourage people to continue to sign up their wards or their children, as the case may be, if they have not done so already. The Cable, which is a generous partner with us, has dedicated persons in their office on Keon Street, and you can go in there during the normal working hours and get assistance with signing up for Aspire. So, and you can visit aspire.gov.kn. There's a lot of information there for persons, but I think we're doing really well with the application so far. We're working out some kinks. One of the main things we want to do next is also give applicants the opportunity to view, we're not there yet, to view their accounts so they can see their money growing, see the interest being added on and so on. So we're working with National Bank on getting that portal up, but because you can deposit, but we don't want you to withdraw until you're at the end of the program. We're just working out the idiosyncrasies on getting that done. But rest assured, we want that to be an active part because we want the young people to look at their thing and see that they put on $10 and see the interest rate being applied and seeing their money growing and so on. So that's very, very important to us. So I can't say enough about Aspire. I love the program. My staff tells me I'm always talking about Aspire. So I know they're listening and they're smiling because I'm always doing something with Aspire, because I really believe in the program, and I think it's going to be a game changer for that generation that is now a part of it. I wish I could have been a part of Aspire, but I'm too old for that.
Probably changed the lives of an entire generation.
I'm sure, because I think I'm an intelligent person, but there's a lot I don't know about finances. I'm not the best financial person just because we weren't given that base.
We were taught how to go and make money.
We were taught to save.
Right. But not what
don't
to do
touch
with
your
the
money, but we weren't taught how to make our money grow for us.
And work for us and our children, our families. Now, the only thing, because I think you have touched everything, is how do we get in touch with the Secretariat if we need to, whether it is to get information, ask questions, how do we reach your offices?
Oh, sure. So my office is located on the 3rd floor of Government Headquarters on Church Street, and persons can call 467-1167, 467-1167. And you can send an email as well, cabinetsec, @gov.kn. And if you have any questions or queries, if I can't answer, I can direct you to someone. I really want to thank you for the time. Thank ZIZ, and thank my staff, Ms. Williams, Ms. Bell, Mr. Carlisle, for their support. They really keep me on point, especially Ms. Williams. She keeps me on point, keeps me on track, and so I really appreciate their hard work, because sometimes there can be lulls in the office, and then there's another time where we just go, and it's very dynamic, and they stick with it, and I appreciate their support.
And thank you so much again for coming in, always being willing to share important information with us here at ZIZ and the public as well. And we encourage everyone to take advantage of all the programs that we've spoken about here this morning. You now know how to reach the Cabinet Secretariat and to ask questions about any of these things, especially Aspire. That one is for children, that one is for tomorrow, and it's something that we have to start doing today. I want to thank you for tuning into this program. Happy to always have you here with us. I want to thank GQ as well for being so kind as to control the boards over there for us this morning. The news is coming up very shortly. I encourage you to stay tuned for that as well. Until we meet again, have a wonderful day.